Our gospel reading comes from the 6th chapter of Luke's gospel, verses 27 through 38. That's on page 729 in your Pew Bible. Jesus says, "But I tell you who hear me, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. If someone strikes you on one cheek, turn to him the other also. If someone takes your cloak, do not stop him from taking your tunic. Give to everyone who asks you, and if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. And if you lend to those from whom you expect payment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners expecting to be repaid. But love your enemies, do good to them, and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, because He is kind and gracious to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful." 20 years ago, we got a letter in the mail from the annual conference telling us about a short-term mission trip to Kenya. And it was just what Sherry had been waiting for a long, long time. You see, when she was 5 years old, she went to see a missionary at her church. And this fella showed everything they were doing in Africa, and he ended his program with, "Who would like to go to Africa to be a missionary?" And Sherry's hand shot up. And everybody chuckled. Little 5-year-old wants to go to Africa. Well, about 35 years later, she got to go. And we went there. I decided that my job to go there was to videotape everything we did and put together a video to show people here the story of the people there.
To explore this partnership and to engage in theological and practical dialogue with their Kenyan partners, 23 Americans from Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana journeyed to Kenya. Team members prepared for travel in a third world country. Bishop Matthew and his wife Florence attended one of the planning sessions. In describing his hopes for the exchange, the bishop told of a Kenyan missionary he had appointed to serve among the fiercely traditional Maasai. The missionary was ridiculed by the Maasai for his short stature and had to force himself to eat the traditional food of the Maasai, a mixture of cow's milk and blood.
And dipping themselves into drinking the blood. And then a member spider would say, I don't feel good looking at it because it is too much. You have to live it. You are a missionary. You are taking them the gospel. You don't participate with what we eat. You don't belong to us.
Well, I thought they need to share with one. So do you want to just continue on?
Yes. Oh, it's so fresh. When they brought out that green stuff, I thought, did you eat very much of it? Well, I kept, we were all standing around this platter with the cow's head and the jaws and the teeth and the eyeballs and hair and everything. Oh.
And just wash our hands when they're serving us chicken. That's what he said.
It was kind of dark and I couldn't see what I was thinking. To prove it was chicken, he gave me an option. I know at least one.
On the way back to Nairobi, one of the vans was struck and nearly run off the road by a small Kenyan truck. The driver of the van, a Kenyan, said, "Let's get him." And soon the Americans were flying at 120 kilometers an hour in pursuit. The truck turned onto a dirt road, and the van followed, though dust completely obscured their view. Suddenly the truck stopped, and the driver and passengers ran away. The Americans found themselves in the middle of a Maasai community. They were greeted by Noah, who asked, "Are you Christians?" When the Americans said yes, Noah said, "Good. I accepted Jesus as my personal Savior just last week. Come, visit my church." Under the sacred flim tree, Christians sang and prayed for each other, and shared and played and found that they were one family, the children of one God.
We are on the way of Christ, and we've talked about fellowship, radical hospitality. We've talked about worship, passionate worship, being present and present together. We've talked about scholarship, intentional faith development. We're on this road and we are growing, and so we must develop our toolboxes of the faith. Out of this development, out of this growth, comes a need for mission and service, and that requires risk. We are called to actually go out and change the world. Pittsburgh is divided by the Monongahela River, and the south side is called South Side. It's a tough neighborhood. The Methodist church on the south side has long ago been torn down, and the lot is empty now. Other churches were sold, have been sold for restaurants and bars. They went to start a ministry there to a neighborhood of people who are just barely pulling through. They were going out on a risky mission to serve people who are not like them. And so they opened what they call the Hot Metal Bridge Faith Community, because there's this bridge that goes from the steel mills on one side of the river to the steel mills on the other side, and that was where basically steel was transported by pipeline from one part of the process to the other. Hot Metal Bridge. And they became a bridge, not a store. But these people got Christ. They found community, found people who accepted them just exactly the way they were, and they found the love of Christ in their lives. And they wanted to do something about it. When Hurricane Katrina came through the Gulf states, they decided to take a trip. And on Thanksgiving Day, they got a whole bunch of turkey fryers. And they fried up enough turkey for 1,000 people. While they were eating the turkey, there was this one fella sitting by himself. And he looked pretty grim. So Derek, whose hair goes this way and his tattoos go this way and his various parts are pierced, went over and sat down next to this fellow and just sat there for a minute. And said, "You know, this really stinks." He didn't say stinks, he said another word. "This really stinks." And finally the guy kind of looked up and a sad little smile formed on his face. And he says, "You're right. This stinks. But this turkey leg is good." And he broke into a smile and everyone laughed. And Derek told a couple of jokes and they just had a moment of joy in the midst of the struggles of life. That's ministry, and that is risk-taking. Raise you up on eagle's wings,